Okay, good morning everyone. And now let's proceed to our lesson for today. But first, let's get to know our lesson title for today. The lesson title is that Principal Development of Materials. First, let us get to know our learning objectives for our lessons. At the end of the lesson, I will be able to first identify the different principles of materials development through accurate oral recitation. Second, evaluate the importance of the principles of good material development by individually classifying them in a table. Third, relate the significance of the principles of materials development to their individual lives. What is material? Materials are anything that facilitates learning. Materials is anything that helps learning take place. Materials development is about selecting, adapting, or creating teaching resources. For example, if we are learning verb tenses, the teacher can use a textbook activity that is selected, show a short video about daily routines adapted, or create a worksheet with practice exercises that is created. What is materials development? Material development is basically dealing with the selection, adaptation, and creation of teaching materials according to Noonan 1991. There's a two questions in materials development that we should consider. First, what should be provided for learners as materials? And the next one is how do we deliver them? For instance, if students need speaking practice, the teacher can provide role play cards, what to provide, and then organize peer group role play activities. That is how we deliver. Materials designers may say the key to materials development is intuition. However, we must be aware of our subjective biases. Materials designers often use intuition when creating resources, but we must be careful for our own biases. For example, a teacher may love reading passages, but students might learn better shorter interactive stories or even videos. So, we must design materials with learners' needs in mind, not just for our own preferences. So sum up, materials development is not only about having resources, but also making sure they are appropriate, engaging, and effectively delivered to support learning.
Good day, everyone. So, basic principles of second language acquisition relevant to the development of the materials compiled by Brian T. Omlinson. So, the first one is materials should achieve impact, meaning that the learning materials must be interesting and also eye-catching so that target learners will pay attention and be motivated to learn. The second one is the materials should help learners feel at ease because the materials should help learners feel comfortable, relaxed, and not pressured, and also being supported by the materials used. The third one is the material should help learners develop confidence because materials should allow learners to succeed step by step and drive the students to develop and their own skills and also their own capabilities. Number 4, what is being taught should be perceived by learners as relevant and useful materials because it should be persuading the learners that it's also important or useful because as a teachers, we need to find the learners' interest. The fifth one is materials should require and facilitate learners' self-investment, meaning the material should encourage the learners to put effort, interest, and their attention. The sixth one, that learners must be ready to acquire the points being taught. Using of materials will help the learners to be focused on the content or the features that they haven't learned yet to make them more attentive and they are also motivated to learn. And the last one, the seventh one, material should expose learners to language and authentic use. Meaning, the learning materials should also provide real examples of how the language is used in actual conversations, stories, and text. Do you have any questions or clarifications about my part? And now, may I call Miss Hannah to proceed and continue the basic principles of the development materials.
Thank you very much for that well-elaborated report, Mr. Gerard. Now let's proceed to number 8. It says here that the learner's attention should be drawn to linguistic features of the input, meaning when the learners read or listen to language, they should notice the important parts of that language, such as the grammar structures, vocabulary, and how the words are used in the sentences, instead of just understanding the general ideas. Okay, number 9. Material should provide learners an opportunities to use the target language to achieve communication. Now, it point out here that the learner should practice using the language to express meaning and communicate ideas, not just memorizing it. So, for example, you can organize a group discussion where students can share weekend plans using future tense, I'm going to visit my cousin. So this way, they can express their own ideas, their plans, and also they can practice the language in real situation. Number 10, it says here that material should take into account that learners differ in learning style, meaning material should cater to different ways people learn, such as if they are visual learners, auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, and so on. So for example, in a vocabulary lesson, you should include a short video for visual learners, a song for auditory learners, and a card matching game for those who are kinesthetic learners, so that every learners can connect with the content or with your lesson. Number 11. Material should take into account that learners differ in affective attitude, meaning some learners might be shy, anxious, or overconfident. So, the materials that we should choose should be adaptable to the different emotional needs of our learners. So, for example, in a speaking activity, instead of forcing everyone to present in front of the whole class, students can first practice in a small group to reduce the anxiety. Number 12. Material should permit a silent period at the beginning of the instruction. Especially for beginners, students should be allowed time to listen and absorb the language before they are expected to speak. Also, my example here is that during our reporting, right, we have this, in our PPT, we present some question and then we give allotted time for our students to brainstorm with their groups so that they can absorb the language and also to have time to think what to answer. Number 13 says here that material should maximize learning potential by encouraging intellectual, aesthetic, and emotional involvement. Meaning, learning should engage the whole person, not just the mind, but also creativity and emotions. When students think deeply, they create something and then they feel connected. In that way, they learn better and remember longer. So for example, a lesson on environmental issue has students analyze the statistic which focuses on their intellectual, and then after that, they can also design eco-friendly poster which focuses on aesthetic materials, and then after that, you can have them share how pollution affect their hometown which focuses on their emotional aspect. Number 14, it says here that material should not rely too much on controlled practice. This means that we should not just use the traditional materials that was used before. It also means that the student shouldn't only do the fill in the blanks or repeat after me exercises. They should also need to be free and creative in using the language. For example, after practicing wheel for future prediction in a worksheet, students freely discuss what they think the world will look like in 50 years. Last but not the least, number 15, Material should provide opportunities for outcome feedback, meaning students should know how well they did or what they can improve. So for example, after a group presentation, the teacher give each group a written feedback on pronunciation, vocabulary use, and then content accuracy, plus the suggestion for their improvement.
Okay, so hello everyone. Now let's take a quick review to the main points from our presentation. Okay? Okay, so first we learned that a good lesson should be exciting and easy to understand, right? Right. And we need to help students feel comfortable and relaxed so they can build their confidence. Okay? And next is that what we teach should feel useful to the students. Okay? Now, so they must also be ready to learn new things. We should show the students how language is used in real life and point out how grammar and words work. Okay? And when it comes to practicing everyone, we need to give students a chances to talk and use the language. We should not do too many simple, repetitive drills. Also, when it gives feedback, no, it's better to focus on how well they got their message across, not just their grammar was perfect. Okay? Okay, so and finally everyone, remember that everyone learns differently. So we should offer different activities and text type and not force students to speak until they are ready. So does anyone have any questions, clarifications? I believe none. So thank you for your attention.